Hey, honey,
Yes, Barry?
let's get out of here.
Where are we going?
Where do we always go?
Fascina el viento, este ritmo de palmas, sin mi naturaleza, hasta encontrar la playa. Por eso grito al mundo, yo soy de Puerto Vallarta. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta.
Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. I am your host, Barry Kessler, and I'm just so happy to be introducing you to my favorite vacation destination. Hey, maybe it's even yours, and that's Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. That music you're listening to is performed by Alberto Perez, and Alberto is the owner of the Lapa Lapa group of restaurants here in Puerto Vallarta. Those are the Lapa Lapa, the El Dorado Beach Club, and at night the El Dorado transforms into the ever-so-romantic Vista Grill, with dramatic views of the Los Muertos Pier, all lit up at night in beautiful colors. And of course, at Lapa Lapa, you can enjoy that same view of the Los Muertos Pier all day long for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, seated with your toes in the sand right at the water's edge. It's so romantic. It's so Puerto Vallarta, my friends. This week, I have a couple of adventurers who sailed their sailboat from Seattle, Washington to Puerto Vallarta. And we're living in the Marina Vallarta. But first, let's see what's happening this week in Puerto Vallarta, the 9th of May, 2018. This podcast is coming to you from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and I'm sitting in an Airbnb that's way up on a mountainside right above downtown Puerto Vallarta. And the views from this condo, well, they're just amazing. But you know what? You got to be part mountain goat if you want to stay here. And luckily, I am one of those goats. I've been called an old goat, but I can do stairs and I can do steps, and as long as I can do them, I guess I'll try. But anyway, this condo has 51 steps that lead straight up from the street to the condo. It's on a street called Arroyo del Pedregoso, and it's a street that is, it's an alleyway. It's actually too narrow for a taxi to make it up more than 100 feet. And So you basically have the taxi drop you off at the bottom, and then you walk your way up this very steep alleyway. It can be a little spooky at night, but actually the neighborhood is pretty nice. It's a real Mexican neighborhood. It's right below the cross, that famous cross on the mount above Puerto Vallarta. Yes, I do that hike to the cross every day just coming to this condo. I can look right behind me, and that cross is, it's not very far at all. I could reach out and touch it almost. So that's how high up I go, and I do that every day, a couple times a day, actually. I'm getting quite the workout. So if you guys are interested in this condo, I will have pictures of it. Anyway, they're going to have the Down Vallarta BMX bike race. It's going to go right past my place. It's actually going to go right down that street. And so I'll get some film, and I should film. God, I sound old. I'll take some videos, and I'll bring all that stuff to you next week. And I'll have those in the show notes, so check those out. I also have pictures of the Airbnb in the show notes for this episode. I've got pictures from the rooftop of this condo, which is amazing. And I'll have pictures of that hike that I take and those steps that I climb up to my condo. Now, you got to admit, and I have to admit, that my biggest problem was lugging all of my luggage up those 51 steps. That was tough, I gotta say. Anyway, being up here 51 steps up and then a little ways up a very narrow street kind of gives you a little bit of, you might want to think twice, before you go run down to the corner tienda for some beer and ice. It's a hike. All right, I'll stop complaining. Anyway, Next week, my lovely wife is going to come to town, and she'll join me for an entire 4 days. 4 whole days. Yay, Daddy. We're going to celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary a little bit early. And anyway, I'm going to find a different place because I'm pretty sure that I'll be blamed for wrecking her knees or wearing her out or being cheap, like $32 a night cheap. That's what I'm paying here. Anyway, I'm pretty sure she'd be a little creeped out walking up that narrow alley late at night. So I'll let you guys know where I land, and I'll take pictures, of course, of that place too. I'll give you a full review of this place that I'm in right now, and so just stay tuned for that next week. Now, the weather is warming up here, and the humidity is beginning to ramp up, but I'm from Southern California, and I can take the heat. It's really not that bad right yet, but there are people around here who are complaining. So just beware, dress appropriately if you're coming to town. And yesterday we had a meet and greet over at Kelly's Por Favor Saloon and Cookhouse, and we had quite a group there. Some great interviews over on the rooftop patio over at Kelly's. And downstairs they had Tequila Rush playing there. And that's my friend Stephen Tenney. That's his band. And actually, I have an episode featuring Stephen in the catalog. So if you're interested in hearing what a rock and roller in Puerto Vallarta does, just Google his name, Steventenny, and then put Puerto Vallarta at the end, and you will find my episode. You will find his episode. So anyway, I'll bring those interviews from the rooftop over at Kelly's Por Favor next week. So stay tuned. We'll hear what everybody had to say at the meet and greet. Now, the date of the open microphone at Cuatecicuetes has to be changed because tomorrow is May 10th, and May 10th in Mexico is Mother's Day. And guess what? They're closed for Mother's Day at Cuatecicuetes. I mean, go figure. I mean, in the States, I guess probably all the way around the world, Mother's Day is a big day for taking your mom out to a restaurant. So I'm not quite sure what that's all about. Because there's other restaurants that are open for Mother's Day. And, so I'm guessing maybe it has to do with the cooks and the chefs and some of the wait staff. But they are taking that day off. So we're going to need to change the date from Thursday, the 10th, to Friday, the 11th. So open microphone at Cuatecicuetes Friday, not Thursday, from 2 o'clock until 4 o'clock. And so just make that note. If you're in town, come and join me for some beer and some chips and some guacamole, and just tell me what the heck you're doing in paradise. Now, it's going to be a busy week for me. I have lots of great interviews to do, and I've already gotten some real gems for you. So really what I want to do right now is get to the interview for this week. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Last January, I wandered down to Marina, Vallarta, on the Thursday evening to experience their evening farmers market. And wow, it is huge, you guys. The vendors line the marina on both sides of the walkway. There must have been hundreds of vendors there. Some of them were like the usual stuff that you see in Mexico. And then there were some extremely unusual vendors. And I talked with a bunch of those people. I recorded them. And I'll bring you those interviews a little bit later in the year when the Marina Vallarta Farmers Market ramps up again in high season, because they're not doing that right now. But anyway, while I was walking around with my microphone, I ran into a couple, and they wanted to know what I was doing. And so when I told them, they told me that they live on their sailboat and that they sailed from Seattle, Washington, down to Puerto Vallarta. And I go, whoa, hold on, guys. Wait a minute. We need to talk. Now, I love sailing. And at home in Southern California, I belong to a sailing club. It's called the Fairwind Yacht Club. And we sail out of Channel Islands Harbor in Port Hueneme. And we're really fortunate right there, right outside of that harbor is the Channel Islands Marine National Park. And it's this archipelago of islands. It's a chain of islands. It's about 11 miles off the coast, and great places to sail. So it's really cool there. There's lots of dolphins and whales almost all year round. And yeah, I have to admit, I have a soft spot for sailors. Oh, that certainly does not sound right. Anyway, I've always wondered what it would be like to sail down to Puerto Vallarta from the United States, haven't you? Come on, sure you have. So we arranged to meet on their sailboat the following Sunday evening and do an interview and bring you their story. So without any further ado, let's meet these two adventurers and their two cats. By the way, throughout the interview, you're going to hear the tinkle of a bell, and that is a bell on one of the cats. So anyway, let's go right now to Marina Vallarta and go below deck into the cozy cabin aboard the sailing vessel Due West and chat with Captain Kirk and Heidi Hackler and their cats Tosh and Tika. Heidi and Captain Kirk, thanks for inviting me on your boat.
Hey, thanks for coming down here, Barry. It's great to meet you and chat with you.
Yeah, I'm glad we ran into you on the Malecons at the market. It was great.
Yeah. Well, every once in a while, there is that... you meet somebody that you really want to bring on the show. You were explaining, to me that you sailed down. I'm going, really? Okay, you guys, you win. I mean, you got the prize. Come on show, and we'll talk. Tell us about yourselves. What was your path to Puerto Vallarta?
Well, so Kirk and I met Sailboat Racing 28 years ago, and both of us had the dream of getting a boat and cruising around the seven seas at some point in the future. So it was kind of a match made in heaven. We were both vegetarian, too, when we met, so that was great. And when we first met, we didn't have any plans to get a boat right away, but shortly thereafter, maybe within 2 years, the boat of our dreams, this boat that you're on right now, kind of fell into our laps. So we feel super fortunate, a bunch of serendipitous circumstances, and we had our boat, and we got married aboard the following year. And Kirk, do you have more to...
Yeah, I was very fortunate that I was getting ready to sail on a boat that Heidi was crew on in Seattle, and we were getting ready to do the Victoria to Maui sailboat race, and I was brought on as the bow guy to do the race. And so Heidi and I raced around the city and in the races, local races, for a good while and before the race, and we just struck up a great friendship, and it kind of went from there. And I had been on the water most of my life and always been around boats, and so I had a dream for years and years to go sailing around the world. And then Heidi didn't mention this, but since I've known her in her younger years, all the books she read for fun were always about tropical islands with palm trees and all that kind of stuff. So it worked out just great.
in the South Seas and all kinds of... I was totally into sailing adventures. I was really fortunate that my family took a sailing vacation when I was probably 12 or 14 to the Caribbean, and I just fell in love with sailing. I didn't really know how to do it, but I just loved being on the boat and the feel of the boat and the water. And so that kind of set our course for sailing. We got our boat, and then in 1996, we raced to Hawaii on our boat. We did the Victoria to Maui yacht race because Kirk had already done the race. And even though I had a dream of sailing around the world, I didn't really know how I would like being offshore for long periods of time. So we raced to Hawaii, and I found out that I loved being offshore. I loved big ocean passages and big waves and water and things like that. So,
and especially getting to where it was warm.
Yeah, sailing to where it was warm. That was good.
Because where you're from?
We're from Seattle. Mm-hmm. Well, I grew up in Wyoming, which is even really cold.
Oh, yeah.
Really cold and no water there. But Kirk grew up in Seattle, and we lived in Seattle for the past 30 plus years.
Huh?
So
tell us about your boat.
So our boat is a Passport 40. She was built in 1982 in Taiwan. She's a Taiwanese boat designed by Bob Perry. And
yeah, Bob Perry is a world-famous yacht designer who did a lot of, he has some of the most famous boats in the world, the Babas, the Tayanas, the Passports, there's a number of them. and he loves the Passport 40 too. So also, I should say. So that was really a good thing, and he's a good friend of ours, and it's a good seaworthy boat. It was interesting when we went looking for the boat. Heidi was had more time to do it than me, and this was before the internet and all the resources that we have now.
Yeah, 1992.
So she went around and talked to people and talked to boat yards and boat dealerships and whatever, and found that the Passport 40 was an excellent ocean boat. It's pretty and great, but it's also a good sailor.
It's a really seaworthy boat and can take big waves and big winds. And we've had her in some pretty big waves and some pretty big winds. And we don't really like doing that. So we watch the weather pretty carefully and try to avoid those, big weather systems. But we know that the boat is super sturdy and can handle it if we get into such a situation.
Okay, cool. So, all right. Did you, do what a lot of these people do when they move to Puerto Vallarta? Did you just sell everything that you own and come here, or what did you do? How did that happen?
Yeah, well, our house was pretty full of antiques and pottery and figurines and all kinds of. I was an architect and
Kirk was a big collector of things.
And so we had a lot of really nice things. And plus I had a basement full of books and everything like a lot of you all have. And it all went. And I remember as a collector and all, it was an interesting experience because I realized I was committed to this dream to sail away, and this stuff did not fit with that dream, and that was an old dream, and my new dream is this. And so I remember carefully, I watched 50 years of my life drive down the road in a truck to go to an auction house, and off it all went. But I waved it goodbye and said, have fun, new owners. I had a good life with me, now go have a good life with somebody else.
Wow. So you just, it all drove away.
It pretty much all went away. We moved aboard our boat about 16 years ago, and we rented out our house for a few years and eventually got tired of being landlords and sold the house. And we had planned to leave initially in 2008, but then the economy crashed along with our bank accounts. Mm-hmm. So we had to stick around and work for a while longer, and then we reset our course for 2014 and had planned to leave that summer. But in February of 2014, we had a fire aboard our boat. In fact, about right where Barry is sitting right now. We had a heater on in the night, electric heater that caught fire, and we woke up in the middle of the night with our boat on fire. So that was a super scary situation, but Kirk got the fire out, thankfully, and there was quite a bit of damage, no structural damage, but a lot of cosmetic damage, and we ended up being homeless for about 6 months while the boat got repaired. So that set us back another year.
But that was actually a blessing in disguise in a way, because of smoke damage, we had to take everything off the boat, and that was tools, that was clothes, that was cats, and that was everything. And so it forced us to purge, and so we got rid of just a tremendous amount of stuff on the boat again. And when we moved back on, we had our pre-sail away purge already done for us. So I wouldn't repeat the experience, but it had a silver lining.
Right. It actually came in handy, but not really.
Yeah.
No. Who needs that? So, all right, now you're ready to go. You hit the seas. Tell us about your journey. What was that like?
Well, we left Seattle in late August of 2015, and I have got to admit, the getting ready was one of the most frustrating and awful
stressful
experiences of my life. There's just so much to do on the boat, and there's so much to integrate, and so many things. And this is an experience that I am not the only one by any stretch. I had so many people say, Kirk, do not worry about it. Just do it. It'll all pass, and you'll be out there, and you'll forget all about it. And it is true. So at the end of August in 2015, we sailed away down the coast with 3 people with the intention from Seattle, leaving from Seattle, sailing down to San Francisco with the intention of making a one-trip hop about 5 days. But we got weathered in Newport, Oregon, and had to turn in to Newport. And we ended up with being there about a week. And our friends that were still working at the time had to go home. So Heidi and I were all of a sudden alone together with the 2 cats and us, with the trip still ahead of us.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing because that was really our first offshore passage together with just the 2 of us. But prior to that, we had crew. We had crew sailing to Hawaii, and then from Seattle down to Newport, Oregon, we had crew. So all of a sudden it was like, okay, this is it. We're really doing this. And we decided to just gunk hole our way the rest of the way down the coast, kind of stopping every night or 2, and really got to spend a lot of time exploring California, from Crescent City to Fort Bragg to Bodega Bay to the Bay Area. We spent over a month in the Bay Area and then another month in Monterey and on down to Southern California, Santa Barbara, San Diego. Eventually got to Ensenada, Mexico on New Year's Eve. So it took us almost 5 months to get from Seattle to Mexico.
What happened to the 5 days?
Well, I should go back and say that we have a lot of experience cruising in the Pacific Northwest. We sailed year round, and we, even though it's cold in the winter, but we also sailed up into Canada and would go away for 10 days, 2 weeks, or longer, quite often, like a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we knew we could sail a boat ourselves and had done it several times before. So,
right.
Just not on ocean passages.
Yeah. So
like me standing my first night watch alone in the ocean was like, wow.
Yeah, pretty
But
neat.
I loved it. It was a full moon night and the stars were out and it was so amazing. And I was like, okay. And now actually, before we left Seattle, I really thought that my biggest sort of fear factor was going to be doing the nighttime passages, and actually it's become my most favorite thing. I love it.
How about that? All right, you need to explain to everybody what gunk holing is, please.
Oh, sorry about that. Gunk
all right.
holing is a sailing or boating term for just basically anchoring every night. So you just day sail and then anchor at night.
well, and exploring, little gunk holing is also just exploring places, just
Right.
going
little
in and
nooks and crannies and bays and
then the book says
Dropping
this
an
is-
anchor. It's
yeah,
dropping an anchor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The book says this is a good place to go, but you say, well, the next bay over looks really good. Let's just go over there and drop the anchor instead. So
Yeah.
that's gunk holing.
There
Or
you go.
getting out in your kayak or paddleboard or whatever you do and go around just looking around, playing, looking to see.
It was really fun. And I was born in California and have relatives kind of all over, at least Northern California. And so it was great to pull into different ports and have cousins come and visit. We had cousins visit us in Crescent City and in the Bay Area, and in Santa Cruz, and in Monterey. So yeah, it was really fun. And since we've been planning this trip for like 20 some years, my whole family was like, "When are you guys going to do this already?" You know. And so we finally were doing it, and all my
They wanted
family
you
was
out. Get
coming.
out.
Right?
Yeah.
They were coming to visit us and see the boat. And a couple of our cousins watched us sail into Santa Cruz Harbor and just were out on the breakwater taking tons of photos and
neat.
waving, and that was really fun to see.
That's really cool. All right, so now you're in Baja. You're you're in Ensenada. How did the rest of the trip go?
So from Ensenada, we ended up staying there. We were only going to be in Ensenada for 3 or 4 days, but another storm hit. Actually, that fall in 2015 was one of the worst weather fall seasons, I guess, on the whole Pacific coast, and we got stuck in a bunch of different places. Well, stuck is sort of a relative term, but the ports actually closed. Like you go into Newport, Oregon, or you go into Crescent City or even Santa Barbara, and the port captain closes the port due to weather, and you can't leave. So at least 4 different times we got stuck for over a week in different locations. And Ensenada was another one. We went there for just a couple days, and a big, huge system came in, and we got stuck there for over a week. And in that time we were there, we decided to haul the boat out and do some work on it because we realized that the boatyard there was very inexpensive compared to elsewhere. And so we took advantage of that to put another coat of bottom paint on. And by the time we were ready to leave Ensenada, it was like 2 months later. So,
did you like
we
Ensenada?
loved
Did you?
Ensenada.
Okay.
Towards the end of it, we were getting ready to go, and oh, wait a minute, Carnival is just next week. And so Carnival is all
stick around.
Yeah, stick
Right.
around for the big parade. And the one thing that we love about Mexico that we first saw at Carnival was that the floats had all the big headdresses and all the beautiful women on it and all that stuff. But the kids and the grandmothers and the grandfathers are on the float too. It's all a big family thing. And the thing that is so wonderful about Mexico is that they are still very family oriented. And one of our great joys is to go on the Malecons wherever we are and just see all the families out and see all the kids along, and everybody's having a good time. And it's just great to see families out.
Yeah. How was the marina over there in Ensenada?
Surgy, a lot of surge.
Well, we stayed in Cruiseport Marina, which is right next to the cruise ships, and we really liked that marina a lot. I know other people prefer to stay in Marina Corral, which is north of there, and Corral is very surgy. It's also more expensive, and it's further away from town, and so Cruiseport Marina is right in downtown. I mean, we could walk to the grocery store in 5 or 10 minutes, and you're just really in the heart of Ensenada. And we did not know what to expect in Ensenada at all because we had never been there, and we'd been to other parts of Mexico and never really thought much about Ensenada, but we really liked it a lot. It's a great, it's a working class town. It's not really a tourist town, even though cruise ships do stop in there, but it's a fantastic town. We loved it.
Neat.
So to piggyback on that Ensenada, because I know the next thing you're going to ask, is we were going to head down the coast of Baja towards Cabo San Lucas, and there are 2 or 3 or more places you can stop, but not a lot of places on the outside of Baja, but we elected to just go straight on through. So we headed straight out of there, and it was a 5.5-day passage from Ensenada down to Cabo San Lucas, and it was wonderful. We had the best darn time on that trip. It
Perfect
was
weather. Big, huge, blue, rolling ocean seas and dolphins, and yeah, really super cool.
Yeah, it was great, yeah.
So one of the things I was going to mention is when we first were planning our trip and when we were leaving and everything, we had planned to only spend about 4 months in Mexico because ultimately our goal is to get down to Panama, go through the canal to the Caribbean, possibly across the Atlantic to the Med. We just have a lot of places in the world we want to visit. At this point, I'm not sure we'll ever circumnavigate. That was kind of our original goal 20 years ago, but life changes, and now I'm not really thinking we're going to do that. But there's kind of a joke around the cruising sailors that people get to Mexico and they get stuck and they just stay here and they never leave. And we said that is not going to happen to us. We are not going to be these people that just get stuck in Mexico. So 3 years later,
really?
Here we are.
Well, it a part of there, and there's a reason for that, which we probably will get into, but. It's really true. We had so many friends. And one thing that always amazed me, and listeners from all over may understand this, what I'm saying, you go from a place like where you're from, and you have lush green hills, and you have all these big trees, and you have this greenery, and you get down to Baja, and it is basically like the moon. It is stark, and we sailed up and down. I looked at Baja from the inside on the sea, and I swore if a big rain came, it would all just wash away right straight into the sea because it's all such loose. But it's so gorgeous, and it just captivates you, even if you are a lover of trees and green vegetation.
It's stunning.
It is very stunning.
It's really amazing. We ended up spending about 6 months in the Sea of Cortez before we finally made our way down to Banderas Bay.
Oh, I see. I get it.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful bays that are so close. You can sail from one to the other in a day, and you're likely the only people in the bay, and you can take your dinghy or swim or kayak to the beach and hike all over the place. And Baja is stunningly gorgeous. It's a gem in all the world. We know people who did not give it its due, and they sailed off and kicked themselves years later because they never sailed there. And we know other people who explored it very well, went all around the world and said, I never saw any other place like the Sea of Cortez in all the places we ever went.
You know, when you fly over it, you look down and you go, look at that. There's nobody there. And then you see, like, all these little, like you're saying, little coves, you know, and you're thinking, I wonder what it'd be like to sail down there. And you know now. You know what it's like to sail down there.
It's super awesome. And the kayaking is phenomenal. And we got to snorkel with whale sharks on 3 different occasions, which was really probably one of the highlights of my whole entire life. It's so amazing to swim with those huge, the biggest fish in the ocean. And yeah, the water is like being in the Caribbean. It's turquoise, crystal clear blue, and just really phenomenal.
Warm, very warm. And yeah, it's stunning. And most of these bays that Barry was talking about, they're not serviced by roads. So the only place to get there the only way to get there is by boat.
Yeah.
And it's incredible.
Did you guys encounter any surprises at all, other than, you know, being sucked in by weather?
Yeah, well, actually,
Oh, okay.
2016, there was a little hurricane called Hurricane Newton that some of you might have heard of. It hit Cabo, it hit La Paz, it went on up and hit Santa Rosalia, and then went across and hit Carlos San Carlos and Guaymas. But anyway, we were, in theory, hunkered down in a hurricane hole in Puerto Escondido, which is just south of Loreto. It's a big, huge protected bay with a marina there and with mooring balls out in the bay. And we were on one of the mooring balls owned by the marina that was, in theory, hurricane proof. And in fact, it was not.
Ruh-roh.
And yeah, ruh-roh.
Well, one day it was. Please come here, because the next day it wasn't.
So we actually had opted to get off the boat, take our 2 cats, and go to a hotel. The night before the hurricane, they upgraded it from a Category 1 to a Category 2. And we just decided, you know, this is ridiculous. The boat is insured and our lives are not, so there's no point in being on the boat. So we went to a hotel, and unfortunately, in the hurricane, the mooring ball broke loose, and we ended up on the rocks with, thankfully, pretty minor damage. I mean, it was kind of an ordeal to get us hauled off, and we did have to redo the bottom of the boat, but there was no structural damage. It was just bottom paint and some fiberglass that got scraped off. So we were very, very, very lucky. It could have been much worse, but that was our introduction to hurricane season.
That must have freaked you out to see that.
Well, it's one of those things that I don't get. When a problem comes, I'm not one to yikes, what are we going to do, poor me, or anything.
Thankfully, Kirk is super calm. He would be like a great EMT. He just, any crisis situation, like when our boat was on fire,
yeah.
He just grabbed 2 fire extinguishers and went and put it out while I went running out the hatch calling 911 and screaming.
So, and I think keeping a clear head and all that, and it does not matter whether the engine dies and you have to fix it, or something breaks and it's sailing away from you and you got to go back and get it,
or a cat falls overboard and you got to go in the water.
Whatever, any number of those things, you we call it the making lemonade out of lemons things, and they give you, we've had all kinds of things as everybody goes through.
We make a lot of lemonade.
But so we've had a lot of we had a health thing. I might as well go into that now. That was a surprise we didn't know. We were in La Cruz last Valentine's Day, and we were with friends just in the
Happy
cockpit.
hour in our cockpit.
It was just beautiful, and the
and
flu
guac.
had been going around, and it was I didn't know any, but all of a sudden I didn't feel good, and all of a sudden I said, "Ooh, I really don't feel good," and I went down below, and right where Barry is sitting now on the settee, and I laid down, and well, the long and the short of it was, it turns out that I had a stroke, and it was not the kind you normally think of with losing facial coordination and speech capacity and memory and all. It was more a balance thing for me. I was very lucky. It's taken a while to come back, but that was not something that we ever anticipated. And it turns out it's a electrical issue. It isn't a plumbing issue, like my arteries are fine. It's electricity. So anyway, that was a big one. And
you had to get a pacemaker put in. But we were super thankful that we were in Banderas Bay, and we knew about Pamela Thompson. I called her at 12:30 in the morning, and she got an ambulance right out to us in the boat in La Cruz and got us into San Javier Hospital. And the medical care we have received down here is top notch. I actually called all my family afterwards and said, if you guys ever have anything you need to get done, come down here. I mean, it's fantastic. We feel like we got much, much better care here than we would have gotten in the States, and at a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, well, we all love Pamela Thompson.
Yeah. So you've interviewed her before.
Oh, yeah,
so
she was on the show a couple months back. And she's great. She is one of those people that you just don't, you think, how does she have time for all of this? But she just does. It's amazing.
Sure. She does it. Yeah.
So what's it like to live in the marina?
So living in the marina is kind of interesting. We are typically not marina people. We love to be out on the hook. We love to be out in anchorages because you can swim and dive right off your boat. You can have dolphins playing around your boat. You can hear whales through the hull at night. So being in the marina is, not quite like that. You can't swim off of it. There's crocodiles in this marina. It can get really noisy here, especially on weekend nights and New Year's Eve. Oh my gosh, New Year's Eve was kind of a nightmare here. The partying went on all night long. There was a huge boat at the end of our dock that had a rager party going until about 6 a.m. And so it's pretty noisy here. We have been in Marina Vallarta for almost a year now, and mostly to be here for Kirk's health recovery and things like that. And we actually are getting ready to move on in the next month or so. But there's pros and cons to everything, like anything in life. One of the other cons to being in this marina is there's only one bathroom and shower.
Oh, really?
And it's far away, clear at the other end of the marina. It's actually a quarter mile away, so it's a half a mile round trip to the bathroom.
Maybe you gotta know some of these restaurants, right?
Yeah, oh, we do.
I bet you. I bet you do.
Yeah, but on the plus side, and the reason we are here in Marina Vallarta, most of the cruisers and all of our sailing friends are really up in La Cruz, which is a very cruiser-friendly marina. Marina Vallarta, not so cruiser-friendly. This is a commercial marina, and there's a lot of transient boats here and big super yachts and a lot of fishing boats and things like that. Not very many sailboats in here. But on the plus side, we love the close proximity to town. We are really kind of urban people at heart, even though we love nature and being out in nature. If we're going to be in town, we want to be in town and be able to go do everything and go to the parades and the festivals and things like that.
Yeah, it's in the cruising community. It's kind of interesting. We've had lots of. You're going to be in the Banderas Bay area. There's La Cruz, which is a town that Heidi mentioned that has a big marina. there's another one, Nuevo Vallarta and Paradise Village, which are kind of in the middle, and then there's Marina Vallarta. And most everybody likes to go to either of the other two and not Marina Vallarta. But we, like Heidi said, we love, because just today, twice, we walked 5 minutes up to the main road, 7.5 pesos each in hand, and we caught a bus, and within a few minutes, we are transported into town or wherever we want to go, and Barry, I'm sure, has reported over and over what a wonderfully interesting and fun town Vallarta is, and so we couldn't agree more. And like Heidi said, that's why we're here, because other people can't seem to understand the
All our friends think we're nuts for being at this marina when everybody else is in La Cruz.
They're
no,
jealous.
I don't think they
Oh,
are.
no. Well, they
don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and for
You're
hurricanes,
heading back up there, right?
Yeah, for hurricanes, it's the best place to be too.
This
so-
is a really good marina. It's very secure in here.
Yeah, Banderas Bay is one of those bays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of liveaboards here?
Here at this marina, we haven't met any others.
So.
There's some transients here. There's about 3 other boats on this dock right now that all just came in this past week and are heading out next week. But we're really the only people we know of that have been here for like a year.
Incredible. All right. Can you tell me how much it costs per month to dock your boat here?
Yeah, so we're kind of grandfathered in. I think they've raised their rates, but since we got here a year ago and we started buying a package deal where you paid for like 3 months at a time to save money. So we are paying around $500 or $600 a month, I think, where most of the other marinas, and I think even if you came in here new right now, it's about $900 a month. So it's on par with U.S. marinas, which seems kind of ridiculous. Most everything in Mexico costs so much less than in the U.S., but the marinas actually almost cost more. Most of the marinas in Mexico cost more than in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. In La Cruz as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, we were going to move our boat back to La Cruz in December until we realized it would cost us $400 more to move, and we said, forget it. We're going to stay here.
Yeah.
It's a lot of bus rides.
Right, yeah. Well, that's all right. Your friends can come here and be in Vallarta,
the bus system, so to come from La Cruz to Vallarta here where we are is about an hour bus ride. It's 45 minutes to an hour, and we know people that are coming here from La Cruz to Vallarta for medical care or whatever, and they take a big chunk out of their day just with transportation. So anyway.
Usually, if we're going to go to La Cruz, sometimes we take an Uber. We typically take the buses everywhere here. They're fantastic. We love it. It's always an adventure. And if you ever get on a green bus, Barry probably knows this. Have you done a story about the green buses?
Oh, yes, I
man. Green buses are like the adventure of a lifetime. You never know where you're going to end up or what you're going to see, but it's always good. But if we really need to get somewhere far away, we might take an Uber just because it's quicker than the buses and pretty cheap. Ubers here cost about half as much as taxis right now.
Yeah, unless, of course, it's, prime time, peak time, and then they can actually be more than taxis.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so we had, for example, we had a swap meet at La Cruz last Saturday morning. Well, we had
A boater swap meet with
yeah,
lots
boater
of
swap.
all the boaters
you
selling
gotta
all
be
kinds
there,
of boating
yeah.
gear.
Yeah, so we
We were
had
selling a bunch of stuff.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so we had a lot of stuff that we could take on the bus. We've seen other people do it, but it would not be so fun.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, and especially when the bus driver takes off.
Yeah.
When you're not holding on to anything but whatever you're got in your hands.
Right.
Do you ever take this boat out and sail out of this harbor, or have you been just sitting in here for a year?
Well, we actually haven't taken it out yet, mostly due to Kirk's health, but he did get a clean bill of health from the doctors in October. We actually, after he had his stroke, the doctors said he cannot go back and live on board because his balance was so bad.
Yeah.
And so we had to get a condo. We rented a condo in town for about 3 months. And then we're good fortune to condo sit for good friends of ours in the Grand Venetian for the whole summer and through October. So we
how
really
awful.
I know,
the
right?
Grand Venetian.
Yeah. 5 swimming pools and a beach. Oh,
I'm
poor
sorry.
us.
So
I know.
Sorry for us.
Right.
So, yeah.
So we really just moved back aboard in November, and we're planning to go out last weekend, take a bunch of our friends out for a day sail and go look for whales. And we had a little issue with the engine. So, it's a boat. Things always go wrong on a boat. It's just kind of part of life. It's not like having a car. It's much different. So now we're in the process of troubleshooting the engine issue and hopefully getting that fixed this week.
And that's one thing that we wanted to say was a boat is and cruising life is not all
Fun and games?
fun and games, sitting around
It's
at
just
anchor,
luxurious.
having a beer or whatever you want to drink, and jumping off and swimming and all that stuff. A boat is like a house, it's a life, and boats break down,
But more
cars break
so
down.
because it's in salt water, and salt water and metals and electricity kind of all don't mix, and wood, and so all those things combined. I mean, there's just always going to be something on a boat that's not working as it should be. But that's
some
part
of your
of life.
some of your swimming ends up being cleaning the bottom of the boat. And so every couple of weeks you go down scrubby in
But
hand.
wait a minute. There's crocodiles in there.
Well, I'm talking about
Oh,
out.
yeah. Well, here at the marina,
Who does the boat cleaning here in the marina? What's his name?
his name
Lefty?
is
Poncho.
Oh, Poncho.
Almost.
Yeah.
Poncho and Poncho.
I was
going
to say,
left.
right? No, well, yeah, Poncho and Lefty, right?
Right.
No,
It's a great
because I
song.
figure maybe the crocodile got one of his arms.
Right.
And,
No, we do have the bottom cleaned here, but typically we do, and to get the bottom cleaned here costs about 400 pesos. Is that right?
Oh,
Yeah.
What did you?
About like $25. In the States, it would be around $150 to $200. So we are on a pretty tight cruising budget. We're not like independently wealthy or, anything like that. So we pinch our pennies pretty tight, hence riding the buses and, eating a lot of our meals at home on board, but we cook pretty well. So it's good. And we do most of our boat work ourselves. There's times when we hire things out, but for the most part, Kirk is extremely handy, and I'm a kind of a good right-hand man to him, I
Yeah.
guess. So
And Tosh, our cat, is always interested in helping. We have lots of pictures of him right in the middle of a major repair. So
Yeah. Well, the cats are curious. You know what happens? It happens to them too.
yeah.
And did they actually fall off your boat?
Yeah, Tika, our girl cat, is a little bit more curious than Tosh is. Well, they've both fallen over, I guess. They've each fallen over once, and then we also attempted to teach them swimming lessons and how to get back on board
Oh, yeah.
when we were up in Baja, and it was really warm in the water, and I was in the water and Kirk was up on deck, and I got scratched to death with 2 cats in the water with me, which was probably not the best plan. But anyway, they did not learn how to use the cat ladder that we had for them and get back out. So Tosh,
Heidi, cats don't like water.
right? I
Right.
know.
Come on, didn't you
crazy.
know that?
Yeah. Well, Tosh has learned that he does not like water, and he will not even go near the edge of the boat. He kind of walks up and down the center line of the boat and glances over at the water, but will not go near the edge. Tika, on the other hand, will stand right on the gunnel, which is the edge of the boat, and look down at the fish or whatever's in the water. And so last year in La Cruz, in fact, just about a year ago, it was a pretty rough and windy night, and the boat was we were out on the anchor, not in the marina, and the boat was kind of hobby horsing around. And we usually let the cats, out at night. We have our companionway door, the main door, wide open to get fresh air in, and the cats can kind of come and go. And we suddenly realized that Tika was nowhere to be found, and
Ooh.
she was in the water splashing around. And thankfully, Kirk was able to jump in and grab her and hand her up to me, and all's well that ends well, but we
Well,
really got to keep an eye on that girl now.
Thankfully, Heidi was the one who heard the unusual tapping on the side of the hull.
Kind of
which
heard
was,
this sploosh thump, and I was like, Kirk, what's that noise? And he said, I don't know. And I was like, that doesn't sound right. And then I said, where's Tika? And he said, I think she's out in the cockpit. And I went and looked, and no Tika to be found. So I looked over the edge, and her poor little head was bobbing underwater, and it was really terrifying.
So Heidi threw a towel down that she could get her claws into it, but she was so weak that she couldn't hold on to the towel, so there was only one thing to do, and that was jump in the
Captain
water.
Kirk to the rescue.
Yeah,
Yes.
but there's no crocodiles out there, so I
good.
wasn't too worried about it. But there also wasn't a ladder over the side, so the cat got saved. Meanwhile, I'm still in the water.
Waiting for me to dry the cat and then get the ladder.
Oh, look at you! All right, Heidi. And but it was okay, right? It was warm
Oh, sure,
water.
it's
You
warm
know,
water.
your
Yeah, it's all right.
cruise.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Well, that's a good story. I was going to say, so you jumped in and you got shredded by Tika.
No, she didn't. Oh no, she didn't fight at all. She just.
I think she was too weak and tired.
Yeah, she just.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just was happy to be rescued.
You have a blog.
We do have
Tell
a
us
blog.
about it.
So our blog is svdewest.com. SV stands for sailing vessel. So you might see a lot of sailors out there who have SV in front of their boat name. Due West is the name of our boat, like the direction. And we started blogging about, I don't even know, 5 or 6 years ago. I have a background in web design and development for the past 20 years. I actually worked at one of the very first web design companies in Seattle. So when we were getting our boat ready to go cruising, and a lot of our friends and family were interested on what projects we were doing and what was keeping us so busy that we couldn't come play on the weekends and things like that, we kind of started blogging about that, I guess, in the early days of blogging, and just kept that going. And we have a pretty good following. Almost 500 people follow our blog every month, and lots of them are cruisers, new people that are new to cruising. We try to put in tips and tricks for cruisers in there, things that we've learned along the way. And it's also a great way for our friends and family to just keep up to date with where we are and what we're doing. And interestingly, the last couple months we've been really busy playing, having lots of people down here visiting us and things, and we haven't been as regular on the blog posts. And we get a lot of comments from people emailing us saying, when's your next blog post coming out? Where are you? What's going
Yeah.
on? So
They miss you.
they miss us. Yes.
Yeah. If I miss a show, I get the same thing. Where are you?
Right?
Come on. Where is it?
We got a life, right, Barry?
I know. No, we don't. I make sure I get the shows out. I try to deliver.
That's good. Yes. Consistency is key.
That's exactly what they tell us. So, are you guys working on your residency?
Oh, we
yeah,
are,
yeah,
actually.
We are. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
You
so,
wanna talk about that?
we've looked at, we played the game that a lot of people have to play. You get 180 days of tourist card, which allows you to stay in Mexico for 180 days, 6 months. And then you have to go back to the States. It's like that in a lot of countries around the world. But Mexico that's our backyard right now. So we were going back and forth. Heidi's parents live in Tucson part of the year, so we were going up there. And the other thing, as an aside to the residency thing, is that everybody that goes up to the United States is usually asked, say, could you bring me back with you? Could you bring me back? I need this. And
lots
that's
of boat parts and things.
Yeah, boat
Oh, yeah, I
parts,
imagine.
clothes,
Yeah.
everything. And it's largely because the tariff is high, and the certainty or the uncertainty of
Delivery.
delivery is so high that the best way is to so next time
Have
you talk,
a mule bring it for you.
talk to Barry next time he comes down here. but so usually we are the mules, yes.
Yeah.
Yo soy un burro, as they call it. I'm always carrying bags of something from.
Well, we just decided this time around we were going back to the States to go get our 180-day thing again, and we thought, maybe we should take a look at this permanent resident thing. We still do plan to continue on to Central America and South America, probably go down to Ecuador next year, and then through the canal to the Caribbean. But we really love Banderas Bay a lot, and do kind of think we'll probably end up here down the road when we're tired of cruising around. So it just seemed like a good opportunity. And then, not to get too political here, but we're just fed up with what's going on in the U.S. and all that crazy stuff. We thought, well, one of these days Mexico might just slam the door on us and not let us back in. So we better do this now
Do it
while we
now.
still can.
That's right.
So, yeah, we're working on getting our Residente Permanente, and we had you have to apply for that outside of Mexico, so you have to go to a Mexican consulate in the U.S. So we went and applied in Nogales, Arizona when we were up there in November and got approved with all that. And you basically have to show 6 months to a year of bank statements, checking statements, and retirement or retirement accounts. I think it's different at every different consulate wherever you go.
You have to ask.
You have
just
to ask.
before you go in. It's always important.
The one we went to, I think we had to show that we could have the equivalency of like $3,000 a month or something like that. But anyway, we finished the second part of the process down here once we got back to Puerto Vallarta. And just today, in fact, this morning, we spent a couple hours down at the immigration's office. So I got fingerprinted today. Kirk has not gotten his letter of approval yet. So we're still waiting to get that. And probably in the next couple days, he'll go get fingerprinted. And then we pretty soon, maybe by the next week or two, we will become permanent residents.
Well, the Christmas and New Year's holiday was the INS equivalent was shut down from December
15th to January 8th. They were closed.
So they weren't doing
vacation time.
So
Exactly.
if you didn't get it by the 15th, then it sat in limbo for those 3 weeks or whatever.
We also chose to do the whole process by ourselves. You can hire people to help you out, and we had thought that we would do that to make sure that we got all our T's crossed and I's dotted. But when we looked into it, what they were charging to help you out was almost as much or more as it cost to get your permanent residence card, and we couldn't really justify spending that amount of money in our budget. So we just diligently plugged through. You have to fill out all these forms, and they're all in Spanish, and we do speak un poquito amount of Spanish, but not enough to get all these forms done. So we had to do a lot of Google Translate. Thank you, Google, for that. And then we've made a lot of good Mexican friends down here just because we've been here for a year, and we like people and we like hanging out and meeting people. So thankfully, one of our good friends, Antonio, came with us to immigrations to help be our interpreter and speak with them, which was really a good thing to have, because I think in our broken Spanglish, we would have missed a lot of, nuances in what they were asking for. So that was all good.
So one of the more interesting experiences was we went to INS, and we had been given a website for there was a form in there that we needed to fill out. So we came back to the boat, and we're looking at the website, and it had about 15 different categories under there, and none of them, no matter how well you translated, seemed to talk about Residente Permanente or anything that we were doing. So we said, okay, we took very unusual move. We took the computer to INS, turned it on right in front of Norma, the woman who helps us, and she's trying to. She was looking
through all of them, and she was as puzzled as we were, and she finally figured out which one it was we were supposed to fill out. And so I just sat there with the laptop and filled it all out right there and made sure that it was all okay before we left. But yeah, we were the only people around to take a laptop in there. It was kind of funny.
We've never seen another laptop in there ever before or since. So.
Yeah, well, crazy gringos. See how you are. Now, you say that your friends and your family, they come down. Do they come down and visit you at all?
They do, actually. It's really great. I think, being from Seattle area, a lot of people from Seattle come to Puerto Vallarta. There's Alaska Airlines flies nonstop from Seattle to PV. So we've been super fortunate that a lot of friends and some family have come down and visit too. I mean, some of them just happened to be here, on their own vacations, and we were here. After Kirk's stroke, we had a lot of family come down and help out and come visit. So it's been great, and that's one of the things we really like about PV. Besides, well, there's so much to love about PV, but anyway, it's a great international airport and really easy for people from the States to come down and visit, and relatively inexpensive to come down here on vacation. So it's a good spot.
See, now that was their cat. That was which one's that one?
Tosh.
Tosh. Okay, so Tosh just made himself heard.
With an O-ring in his mouth, he fetches. So.
Excellent. Oh, a dog cat.
He's a dog cat.
Okay. What do you guys miss that you can't get here that you can get at home?
Oh my gosh. The biggest things we miss are Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. We're pescatarian, vegetarian, what do we call it? Vegetarian. We're vegetarian. We are mostly vegetarian, but we eat fish on occasion. And we eat pretty healthy. I'm a holistic health and wellness coach, and I blog about that as well, too. But we cook a lot of our meals at home and eat really healthy, and it's easy to get produce, fruits and vegetables here, but some of our staples, things that we like, Bragg's and nutritional yeast and things like that are pretty hard to get here. So
really,
that's what we miss.
Yeah.
So boat parts and some of that stuff too are hard to get, but family and some of the sunflower seeds. Trader Joe's has great sunflower seeds.
Who'd have thunk it? Right?
Yeah, who'd have thunk? And so there's a bunch of different things like that. But
family and friends is what we really miss most, and that's the hardest part about the cruising lifestyle. People think it's really glamorous and you're on vacation all the time or whatever. You're living in paradise, but like Kirk said earlier, it's really it's a lot of work living this lifestyle. It's a great life, and we're so happy that we chose it. But it's no walk in the park, and really the biggest thing I think we miss is friends and family.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's talk about food in the marina, because I spend a lot of time, in downtown. I spend a lot of time at the marina. So why don't you tell us what your favorite places to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner are here in the marina?
Well, in the marina, breakfast. We pretty much eat breakfast. We have a great breakfast place in downtown PV.
Okay, tell me.
Tostaderia. That Javier has a wonderful restaurant. He's on Interbide, very near the cathedral
Right
with
by the church, underneath all the umbrellas the street
that
with
are
all
up
the
there.
umbrellas on it.
That's probably our favorite breakfast place.
But here at the marina, there is the Yogi Bar. I think that's what it's called, Yogi Bar. It's a yoga studio with a healthy kind of vegetarian restaurant attached to it. Has excellent food. That's probably one of my favorite breakfasts. They have great juices and smoothies there, and kind of smoothie bowls and things like that. For lunch here at the marina, we really like Ocho Tostadas. Do you know? Have you been there?
Yeah, sure.
That's kind of a local Puerto Vallarta chain. There's a bunch of Ocho Tostadas.
I think there's Ocho.
Oh, are there?
I
Maybe
think
there's
so.
Ocho.
I
Okay,
think
that
so.
would make sense. They have excellent fish tacos and shrimp tacos, and really the best guacamole and the best pico de gallo of any restaurant I've found in town. We really, really like their stuff. And then for dinners here at the marina, we also like, what's that Italian place called? Oh my gosh, something
over
di
by the
Roma.
office over there.
Il Terrazzo di Roma. And it's the one that has the little platform out over the water where you can sit out there over the water. That place, during peak season in the wintertime right now, you definitely need to get a reservation even a day or two in advance because it's packed. But it's really, really good Italian food, and I'm gluten-free, and they have gluten-free pasta there, so that's kind of
Cool.
nice for me. I like that. And yeah, where Kirk was mentioning the tostaderia downtown, that we love chilaquiles for breakfast if we're going to eat out, and we've tried eating out all over town at many, many different places for breakfast, and really we think that Tostaderia has the best chilaquiles.
Chilaquiles are
in town.
totopos, which are chips, the corn chips, and they're in a sauce. And
It's basically
potato
chips
cheese.
and salsa for breakfast, but it's heated up and
that's
with
my favorite.
and with
the
refried beans with it. And then if you eat eggs, you can get eggs and cheese on top of it. And
the chips
kinda
are
like-
kind of soft too. They're not crunchy hard like.
It's kind of like breakfast nachos.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you order it with, you can order it with chicken. You can order it with, whatever kind of protein that
Yeah.
they have too. I know you guys don't get involved in that, so okay,
No,
I'll
it's
be
good.
quiet. I'm on the boat.
No, it's good.
I'll be on the boat.
Kirk eats eggs and
Oh, okay,
cheese.
all right.
I
Well-
would if I weren't allergic, but
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
So that's at
then
the toast.
that's a tostaderia, which is on
Tostaderia.
Iturbide, right one block north.
If you're
of
standing in front of the church and you turn around, it's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And it's small. They've got
It's
just
really
a
small,
couple
like
of tables
4 tables,
inside,
maybe?
but they've got tables that are outside that are nice to sit at too.
yeah, so you know the place, huh?
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So then,
Javier, who's the proprietor, is a super nice guy, and he'll make anything custom for you. If it's not on the menu, they'll basically make anything you ask for.
That's right. You want it hot, he'll make it hot. You want it whatever way, they'll do it.
yeah, and then up the hill, you go up the stairway, and then the
Veggie Planet is up there. That's another
I was
favorite.
going to say, I was waiting for you to.
Yeah,
say
Veggie
something about
Planet's
that one.
good. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet, vegetarian buffet, and that's a really good deal. It's 105 pesos for all you can eat, and it's oh my gosh,
excellent food.
Yeah.
Excellent.
If
Excellent.
you have kids, that's a great place to go if they'll eat.
If they'll eat their
vegetarian.
vegetables.
yeah.
It's a cheap way to go. Yeah. But so many good places to eat. I mean, we really don't eat out a ton, but when we have friends and family come, we try to take them out. The other place we really like a lot is the food park, the food truck park.
Yeah. Tell us about it.
The food truck park is kind of near La Isla Shopping Mall and near Plaza Caracol, sort of halfway between there. And it's this great concept where they just have a bunch of food trucks kind of around in a circle, and then with picnic tables in the middle, and each different truck has different types of foods. You can get everything from pizza to Japanese to fish and chips.
Curly fries and burgers
Burgers
and
and-
whatever.
And then there's a great bar there to get drinks, and so it's it's a fun place.
You get
Good food.
pizza. You can get great Mexican. You can get all everything. Dessert. One thing is just strictly desserts, and
It's a good place to go with groups because everybody can just go get whatever kind of food they want, and you don't have to worry about who likes what or eats what or.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, and it's like party night around there too. When that happens, everybody's there. Everybody's got their families there, and it's a big party time.
Yeah, and one other restaurant we like a lot for dinners is Barracuda down on the water. It's right on the beach, and it's just beautiful sunset views from there. And the food is really good, and the drinks are good, and that's a nice place
It's
to
a good
go.
vibe. You got a half and half of locals, half of
Yeah.
tourists.
And
Nice.
the tables are right on the sand, so you just take your shoes off and have your toes in the sand, and it's really nice.
here's the surf behind you. It's really nice.
What advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about sailing a boat and living on one in Puerto Vallarta?
It's a great lifestyle. We love it. Just be prepared that it may be more work than you're accustomed to.
Well, if you are a sailboater, like we mentioned, La Cruz, they offer sailboat races out of La Cruz. They're doing what they call the Frostbite Series now, which is
It's so cold.
It's kind of cold this January.
well, I know, but they don't start. The wind doesn't come up till noon, so by the time the race starts, it's 85 degrees. But and then they have Banderas Bay, the race week. They have a bunch of different things on the water. So there's a lot of sailboat racing. And what you end up with is all kinds of boats. You don't have to have the fanciest race boat. You just go out and take your cruiser, and you may want to leave your dinghy in the slip rather than leave it on the davits or bring it around with you. But otherwise, anybody's welcome. And Banderas Bay is a fabulous place to go. There's so many bays that you can get to on your own boat or with a ponga, one of that you can hire. But there's all kinds of bays. Yalapas, the big one, Los Animas, Boca de Tomatlan, Miss Maloya. There's all kinds of places that you can go in your boat. And sometimes you can find a place and actually anchor overnight, and sometimes it's just a day stop. But the Banderas Bay is a wonderful place. Punta de Mita, you can sail out over there, anchor, go into shore, and spend a couple days. So it's a great place. And as we were saying, hurricane season. When we were here in summer, we did not worry much about hurricanes because they don't come here very often. But we were so conditioned for looking at the weather reports that storms crop up. 2 or 3 of them will come up every week down in the Panama area. They don't hit Panama, but they brew down there. And they come up this way, and we have friends up there, and we're all concerned about it. We're fine, but we're worried about our friends up in the sea, and get word out to them right away. Hope you saw it, and most of them did, but sometimes you can be out and miss it. And yes, anyway, so hurricanes are a fact of life around here from June to November that you really do have to live with and make peace with somehow.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is that just don't get too hooked into making plans. I mean, like we mentioned, we had planned to only be in Mexico for about 3 or 4 months, and that was 3 years ago. You just never know when you're out boating. You really live your life by the wind and the weather, and, you know, things can go wrong, but it's also super fun, and it's just so many great adventures out here. But we like to say our plans are written in sand at low tide because literally every time we try to make a plan, something changes it. You know, the universe or Mother Nature or whatever. Our plans just rarely ever turn out the way we think they will. So we still kind of have those plans on the radar as something to go by. But, you know, some big event comes up. Like when we were in Ensenada, we decided to stay around for another week or two just so we could experience Carnival, or, you know, with Kirk's stroke or with the hurricane. Things just come up and you got to go with it. You just got to roll with it and not let life get you down. One of the things we do that's kind of aside from boating, but we have a practice that we call a gratitude check. And so every day, anytime during the day, each of us will just shout out to the other one, gratitude check. And then you have to say 3 things that you're grateful for right then and there. And it's really been helpful for even when times seem kind of down, or, you know, we don't have friends and family around as a support group, or, you know, Kirk was having medical issues or something went wrong with the boat or whatever. And you can kind of tend to spiral down and just go, oh my God, why is all this happening? You know, but anyway, we are very grateful for everything we have in life. We're grateful for our boat and for our cats and for all the great friends and family,
and for Barry
for this interview. So, yeah. Anyways, I challenge all of you to do daily gratitude checks and just see how much it turns your life around. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And just to fill in, the low plans written at low tide in the sand, that's the same for everybody. It is not, we are not the only cruisers who plan to leave on Tuesday, but something happened and it changed the whole plan. That happens to everybody, and it's you kind of wonder sometimes when your friends back home who have a meeting at 10 o'clock and then they have a lunch date at noon, and 2 o'clock they got this, and then we got to go to a National Geographic lecture at 9 tonight, and this and that, all these things, and that pretty much all that stuff comes true. But when you get out in the retired world and in the world of Mexico and whatever, all those rules kind of just, you sure try. I mean, you definitely want to make it happen, but something happens and
it doesn't always happen. The other thing I was just going to say really quickly is even though Kirk's retired, I still am working. I do all my work online, and I work for myself and for another company back in the States. But my whole work world revolves around having to have internet and Wi-Fi, and that's not always an easy thing in Mexico, up in the Sea of Cortez and different places we've been. So really, we've had to plan a lot of our destinations around having internet. or I spend, half of my days hanging out at Starbucks. Starbucks has the fastest Wi-Fi anywhere in Mexico. So if you are planning to work while you're down here, go hang out at the local Starbucks, because at least you'll get good Wi-Fi there, if not coffee as well. But
Of course. Where can we find your blog? Where are you on the web?
so on the web, we are at svsamvictor.com.
All right. Well, Heidi, Kirk, Captain Kirk.
Captain Kirk, U.S. Coast Guard Captain Kirk. Yes.
Thank you so much for letting me come on board and talk to you both and allowing me to share your experiences with my audience.
Thank you so much, Barry. We really appreciate the opportunity to give other people a little glimpse into a sailing life, and hopefully people will check out our blog and see what it's like to be a sailing adventurer out here. And feel free to send us an email through our blog if you have any questions. We're happy to answer.
Excellent.
Thank you, Barry. I really hope people, and I know they do, they listen, but it's a great thing you do, because I hope people take you up on the information and come down and enjoy it. It's really, we spend so much time in seasons when the gringos aren't down here, and then they did come, and I was reminded, because I was around them, just how much fun people are having. They're only down here for a week or 10 days, but they're just having the time of their lives, and it just is great to see people laugh and just have such fun. It's really nice.
Yeah. Well, you guys have added to that for them, because now they're going to have their juices flowing when they start thinking about your adventure.
Well, and our next blog post, which will be coming out in the next week or two, is going to be our top 10 places and things to do around PV that we like best. So you can check that out as well.
Okay, cool. We'll have the links to their website, to their blog post, and you can find it in the show notes for this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. I'm going to also have pictures of the boat, pictures of Heidi and Kirk, Captain Kirk, maybe pictures of their kitty cats, so that you can see.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I know. So that you can kind of see, what life is like over here on board. So, thanks again, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barry.
Feliz año.
All right. Now, weren't they a great couple? I'm really glad that they stopped me in the marina that Thursday night, aren't you? What a story. Now, you might be wondering if Captain Kirk and Heidi have sailed on to their next port, right? So, let me read to you from their latest blog post dated May 1st, 2018. It reads, "Okay, we're getting a little gun-shy about making plans. As you've heard us say before, our plans are written in sand at low tide. But it seems that as soon as we write down any so-called plans, things start to go sideways on us. And this spring was no different. If you read our last post, we were planning to race due west in Banderas Bay Regatta and then head back up to the Sea of Cortez for a few months this spring. But the week before the regatta, just as another regatta was happening here in the bay, Kirk found himself back in the hospital again due to an intestinal infection, combined with electrolyte imbalance. No bueno. While it was a significant ordeal at the time, thankfully he's made another full recovery, and we've learned a lot about our own physiology and vitamin and mineral deficiencies in the meantime. We've also learned about the MTHFR gene mutation that may have played part in causing Kirk's stroke last year. And that, as we age, the body doesn't always absorb all the nutrients it used to. Add to it all that as soils become depleted of minerals, many foods are much less nutrient-rich than they used to be. As you'll learn from Heidi's recent articles, we found that we're both deficient in several key nutrients, vitamins and minerals, plus protein. So, along with taking supplements to help get our nutrient numbers back up more quickly, we've had to become omnivorous again. This dietary change hasn't been easy on us after being vegetarian and vegan for 30 years. Heidi, and 45 years, Kirk. Happily, Kirk is thriving on eating meat and says he feels 10 years younger in just a few weeks. The jury is still out for Heidi, but she's sticking with it for now. As Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world, and we have a lot of change left to effect in this lifetime. So, although we both became vegetarians for ethical reasons, if we need to eat some meat to help keep us healthy again, then, well, that's what we'll do for now. These health setbacks, along with continued engine issues, has meant that we won't be making another trip to the Sea of Cortez this spring after all. After the new timing belt was installed and the freshwater and saltwater pumps were rebuilt and reinstalled, the engine started right up. Yay! And then, oh wait, there's no water coming out of the exhaust. Uh-oh. And so when Kirk and our trusty engine mechanic Omar and his assistant Tosh took another look, they found that our camshaft was broken in 3 places. Whoa. Now, something as strong as a camshaft should not break, especially not into 3 pieces. There is evidence to suggest that it was a faulty casting and was likely bad from the get-go 28 years ago. So we're now working with Perkins UK on getting a new camshaft. Until that happens, Due West is sitting in her slip and jonesing to get out sailing again soon. Thankfully, Puerto Vallarta isn't such a bad place to be stuck. All right, so the adventurers are still in Puerto Vallarta. How about that? No, that's okay. I think I'd try to do the same thing on purpose, you know? Now, you can read the entire post in their blog. It's called Due West Adventures, and you'll find pictures of the great places that they talked about in the Sea of Cortez and all along, you know, their journey. And you just go to their blog and check it out. They've got fantastic photos. It's really cool to see what their adventure was like. So check them out. And I have pictures of Captain Kirk and Heidi and links to their blog and all that cool stuff in the show notes of this episode. So check those out too. And, you know, you might as well follow along and just see if they can escape from the grip of Puerto Vallarta. Of course, it's a very strong grip, you guys. But hey, these adventurers, they need to get to their next adventure, right? So best wishes to both of them. And my sincere wish is for them to be able to finally hoist anchor and then set sail to their next chapter, their next adventure. I don't want this to be a next episode of The Twilight Zone for these guys. Okay, that should do it for this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. Next week, stay tuned for more on-the-ground reports from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, with travel tips, great restaurant and excursion ideas, and more. But until then, remember that this is an interactive show where I depend on your questions and suggestions about all things Puerto Vallarta. If you think of something that I should be talking about, please reach out to me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending us your message. And remember, if you're considering booking any type of tour while you're in Puerto Vallarta, you must go to vallartainfo.com, that's JR's website, and reserve your tour through him right from his website. Remember, this is a value-for-value proposition, my friends. His experience and on-the-ground knowledge of everything's Puerto Vallarta in exchange for your making a purchase of a tour that you do anyway. You're just doing it through him as a way of saying, thank you. Thanks, JR, for being our guide. It costs no more than if you were going to use someone else, so do it, really. And when you do take one of those tours, email me about your experiences. Maybe you could come on board and share with others what you liked or didn't like about the tour. Again, contact me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending off a message. And don't forget, JR has his maps, he's got his DIY tours, his revitalized happy hour board, and more. And I have links to all of that in the show notes for this episode and really all over my website. And once again, if you like this podcast, please take the time and subscribe and give me a good review on iTunes if you would. That way we can get the word out to more and more people about the magic of this place, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And remember, I made it easy for you to do just that with each episode I create. But if you haven't been to my website, you really need to have a look there. I have links to the places that we talk about. I have interesting pictures and more right there in the blog posts and in the show notes for each episode of the show that I create. So check it out if you haven't already, all right? All right, so thanks to Captain Kirk and Heidi Hackler. Don't miss those pictures in the show notes here, and also I have a link to their blog. You've got to see their blog. Go ahead and subscribe and follow them and see what happens in their adventures. Maybe they'll make it out of Puerto Vallarta. We'll see. Anyway, thanks to all of you for listening all the way through this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. This is Barry Kessler signing off with a wish for all of you to slow down, be kind, and live the Vallarta lifestyle. Nos vemos, amigos.
Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de amor junto al mar. Solo camino eterno por la playa, me encuentro junto al río cuando todo está en calma. Pronto cae la noche, me brillas Puerto Vallarta, samba de Puerto Vallarta.